Hello, welcome into a fresh edition of Chi Time with me, Clara Apollo, here on YouTube and on podcast. And on this episode, we're stepping away from doing any more recording for UK Health Radio. We're really being with the whole podcasting things, which means we can have this for as long as we want, and we don't have to drop in any adverts. Sadly, we're not going to be able to play any tunes, and I know that my guest here loves his music, so I hope he's going to give us some links to some of his tunes, because we're talking about hypnotherapy. Nathan Simmonds is with me here. Welcome into Chi Time, Nathan.
Thank you for having me, Clara. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yes, so this is actually the first time Nathan and I have met. We've done quite a few conversing's behind the scenes. I've been running his recent hypnotherapy, FreeMind, amazing trips that you take us on. Let's just say it like it is. And I've just been supremely grateful to what it's opened up deep within me, that I used to have a connection with my subconscious in a more like florid way back in the day. And I was doing my color mirrors training. I remember it being pretty strong, and with Reiki, and then the Qigong training too. And they've got some overlaps in how we take care of our mind, body, soul system here. So I think that was one of the things that first drew me to you, was that you have a Qigong practice as well. So you're speaking my language like that too. So maybe I'll ask you about that first then. How did Qigong come into your life, Nathan?
Through my wife, primarily. So I've always done, most of my life I've trained martial arts, and it started with karate and kung fu when I was younger, and then turned into capoeira, and then came back to kung fu. So there was a little bit of tai chi in there and a little bit of qigong here and there. But then through my wife's personal journey, her healing journey, she discovered qigong. And in that, I started then practicing with her, because I wasn't moving. Over the last kind of 4.5 years, certain things have happened. My health took a bit of a knock about 7.5 years ago. And then 4.5 years ago or so, I then started really focusing on the business and stopped moving, like really stopped moving, because I was just focusing on getting my work done, creating my business, trying to work out how I was going to connect with the world and really doing. And that just meant long periods of time sat at my desk, not moving. And as a result of that, is kind of this sitting down is probably one of the biggest illnesses of this generation, of our time. And so coming into that Qigong is really kind of just waking up, shaking, tapping, tuning into the internal organs, working with the healing sounds, feeling the vibrations internally when we're doing these things. And activating those parts, even just a little bit in the morning, to get me going, to get the system and get the energy flowing. And then I gave myself tennis elbow doing some of the animal forms. So I was like, so my wife was like, well, couldn't you just do it calmly like everyone else does? And I was like, no. And then so kind of, I don't do as much qigong as I would like to do now, but yeah, I'm keeping it kind of a little bit to just to kind of wake the system up first thing in the morning, get the energy moving is enough for me. Enough, yeah.
Yeah, I think most people that practice Qigong would like to do more. So you're not alone there. And in a way, that's a beckoning in. Like, there's always more that you could play with. And it's just, how is this sitting for you? How is it useful for you right now? Because I think when we take that should word away from any of this, then it opens the possibility of play. And that to me is what Qigong is. It's playing with the energy in a profound way, but that sort of childlike curiosity is like, so when I hold my hands here for a little bit, I give them a little bit of a waft, so I'm wafting my hands in and out here. This is a classic way of kind of just feeling the chi, or just enjoying the movement of the wrists and the hands for movement's sake.
Yep.
How often do we do that, apart from maybe when we're dancing? So there's the real connection between Qigong and dance. I feel it helps to free up the body. And as you're saying, when you do a lot of sitting, I love that you said that sitting is a like a really common disease. It's like, and we are here sitting as well. I was thinking it'd be nice if I could stand up and have a little standing desk while I'm doing these. So I might look at that, because that movement when you're talking, there's another energy that comes through when you've got a gesticulation going on, or the
Yep.
movement of flow. And I know that, you know, when you deliver your hypnotherapy meditations, you are tapping into that flow that's between the mind, the different layers of the mind and the body. So how did you get into hypnotherapy? What kind of drew you in there?
I laugh about this because it was because of COVID that I ended up in hypnotherapy. So,
Okay,
and
silver
this was
lining.
totally the silver lining. And COVID for all of the kind of so-called negative things it depends on the perception you got it for, all the negative things that it was, however it's arrived, however it's appeared in our lives, you know, it has been horrendous and heartbreaking in many cases. And at the same time, there is a deep, nutrient-rich deliciousness. There is a necessity for some of that stuff in there, depending on where we go to in those spaces. And in that space, 5 months before COVID had kicked off, you know, around the beginning of February time in the UK, I'd just gone to work for a training company. And I was working for them, not quite full time, but I had enough hours with them and with space to work on my own business, and everything was going great. And that was in the September of 2019. And then February 2020 landed, all of their clients postponed within 48 hours. So the business had to pivot quite drastically. We were really looking at how to get more live content out, how we can encourage more people to do more online training with us. So all these things that I've been procrastinating on for 4 years or so, you know, saying that I don't have enough live content, I can't do a daily live on Facebook or on social media because I don't have enough to talk about. I can't do this, I can't do that, whatever it was, can't create all this new content. COVID landed and all the procrastination went out the window, and I was doing live content almost every Monday to Friday for 20 to 30 minutes of live training every day.
Online being recorded and stuff.
Online. Well, these were live, these are like webinars. I
Okay.
think it was on WebEx
Oh,
at the time.
okay.
So
Okay.
the organization I was working for were inviting people that were in their network to come and attend these live trainings every single day so they could get a flavor of me online and what training I offer. So that was one element. And then I was creating all these new concepts and all these new coaching models and materials for them, assets, writing. And all of a sudden, all that stuff that I was procrastinating on was being funneled into that moment, actually being procrastinating on. And the amount of people that I've asked during, you know, before COVID, were you procrastinating? What were you procrastinating on? And what did COVID bring you? It's always been the stuff that they were procrastinating on came forward in COVID, and they were forced, their hand was forced.
Yes, I have this story too. Absolutely. With
100%.
the whole Qigong thing, because I mean, I knew that going online would be a facility to offer people, not only with the lives, but also the replays.
Yep.
Replays you can't offer people in, you know, what sessions, live sessions. So that's, you know, it brings in another element of how we share what it is we do. And so this brought you into hypnotherapy then. So yeah, so what were you doing the trainee stuff, or what was that work?
So the training work was pure leadership development. So teaching
Okay.
coaching skills, communication skills, teamwork, how to give feedback, all of these things. I also teach some psychotherapy techniques as well in there, because actually there's a really nice crossover between leadership psychology and psychotherapy techniques. Real necessity to understand how damaged so many leaders actually are, and how much damage they are actually causing to the people in their teams, in their responsibilities. But when you combine this with psychotherapy tools, primarily I teach bits of TA, drama triangle, ego states, these sorts of things. You see how modern leadership starts to behave, and you give them something like the drama triangle, where you have the persecutor, the rescuer, and the victim, and you see actually how leaders are playing into these cycles and how they're showing up with their drama from their childhood. And basically the cliche meme that I love quoting on this is, if you don't heal your wounds, you'll end up bleeding on people that didn't cut you. And this is what we see in modern leadership time and time again. You know, without going too political, if you look at the likes of Boris Johnson, Priti Patel, these sorts of people, and you're telling me that they didn't have adverse childhood experiences, which they've been socialized and normalized, and are now being projected onto their constituents. So when you start to look at this and you start to look at leadership psychology, psychotherapy techniques and these models and frameworks, when you put them together, you can create a very different perspective of a modern leader. And also you will agitate enough in order for that modern leader to turn around and go, shit, there's something I need to look at here. There's something I need to work on. And, really cause a deeper level of introspection.
Yes.
And I've known these techniques for decades.
Okay, so is this what you trained in originally?
Originally, well, I think I started learning the TA kind of models and concepts when I was 20. I'm 44 now.
Sorry, can I just ask you what TA, because that used to mean territorial army back in my brother's day. So I'm assuming you don't mean that. That's not what it is.
No, we definitely didn't learn it in the territorial army. It's transactional analysis.
Okay.
So it's a form of psychotherapy, in my understanding, that really looks at relationship dynamics. The Games That People Play is one of the famous books written by I want to say Eric Byrne off the top of my head. I may have got that wrong. Apologies if I have. But it's the title of the book is The Games People Play. So we look at these relationships and actually the transactions that we're creating. And actually, when we look at our adverse childhood experiences, how that encodes a certain kind of behavior in us, so that when we turn up into a relationship, what we're doing is we're actually just reacting. We're reacting a past event in the present moment, which is stopping us from creating a future. So when we understand this, is I have a judgment, an expectation, a limiting belief about myself based on how I was treated. So I will turn up in relationships seeking certainty, seeking safety, or my so-called needs being met by behaving like this in a protective fashion. So when I turn up to speak to Clara, I will behave in a certain kind of way which will trigger a reaction from you, because you're now a character in my story from the past. And then that triggers something for you, and I then become a character in your story. Even though our stories are separate, we create similarities, so we end up basically trauma bonding inside of that.
Right. Yeah.
And co-creating a perpetuated moment from the past in the current, which is why we have this. So when we look at the drama triangle, which is phenomenally powerful, it's created in 1968. So few people know this model, and I highly recommend, if anyone listening to this, Google it, look it up, because it will just blow your mind when you see it. You'll see it, because people just are constantly reliving their drama. Drama doesn't just find you, as one of the other sayings I've found. You either create it, invite it, or associate with it. It doesn't just turn up. It's because of a way of living, a way of being that has been encoded very deeply into your psyche, is engaging, is encouraging you to behave in a certain kind of way in order for you to get your needs met based on something that happened to you as a child. And I was going to say, but that behavior, that thing that's encouraging that behavior, that part of your psyche that is kind of dropping those nudges in, still thinks you're the same age as you were when that original event happened. So I might be 44, but actually I'm a 3-year-old wrapped in a 44-year-old's body. And this behavior is still coming out to play, which is encouraging this thing to happen again to me over and over and over again, because it doesn't realize that I'm actually capable of processing or dealing with that thing. So it just keeps the same habits and behaviors on a loop, keeps me stuck in that moment.
Yeah, Nathan, this is so fascinating, because it's like it's shining a light on the way that we all are. And if you realize that you want to change, so like back in about 7 years ago, I knew that I couldn't carry on doing what I was doing the way I was doing it. I knew there was something that needed to shift, and I didn't know how to find the new way in the old pattern. So I just threw everything out. I gave the keys back to the landlord. I split up with my partner, and I went on walkabout for like 5 years. It wasn't meant to be 5 years, but it did end up like that, because I wanted to create some new patterns, some new lifestyle patterns. I wanted to live in a different country, see things from a different angle, see how I could work as a digital nomad, coming in and out of the country, just shake it all up. I knew I had to do something, but it wasn't quite, didn't really get to, I mean, it must have shaken me up a bit. In fact, it made me feel quite insecure in the end, and I needed to find a home, which is where I am now in Avalon. And with the Qigong as well, sort of doing the clearing forms there, just keep clearing out, just keep clearing out. And my meditations would bring me into this peaceful place, but they wouldn't do anything else. It was like, and there's something around when you're a facilitator, when you hold other people and doing the best you can, probably running a few patterns, okay, where are you being held? Where are you being held? And that's what I think, having done quite a few of your hypnotherapy, mind bending, amazing sessions, I feel really held by you in a safe zone so that my system can soften and journey to where it needs to go. And oh my word, it's just been like revelationary. And I thank you so much. So, is this what happened? A similar thing happened to you when you got into hypnotherapy?
Yes. And so I've experienced lots of traumas over the years. And let me be clear on what trauma is and isn't. So Gabor Mate says trauma isn't what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you as a result of what happens to you. So we know it's something that changes you psychologically and physiologically and causes you to shift a pattern of behavior in order to survive. It's an adaptation, okay? And there is no big or small trauma. There is only trauma. There isn't any, for me, there isn't any kind of gradient. There isn't a 1 to 10 scale. There isn't, this is shit and that's bearable. It's just trauma. And trauma is relative, not comparative. Yeah. So my trauma started off in many different forms. I experienced bullying at school. I was also diagnosed with Crohn's disease and had multiple operations at the age of 8, 9 years old. So I had multiple intrusions physically as a result of that. And I've done lots of things. I was bullied. I became a bully. I also had the only way I can describe it was a drug overdose on recreational drugs at 22, 23 years old. Many different experiences. But then I speak to somebody, and this comes with a bit of a kind of a trigger activation warning, who was sex trafficked by his older brother when he was 9 years old. So all of a sudden, and this is what people do though, they make the trauma comparative. It's like, well, I was bullied at school, so I thought my bullying was maybe a 5 out of 10 because actually everybody gets bullied. What have I got to worry about? What am I complaining about? And then you meet this person over here and this has happened to them. Well, that's a 10 out of 10. So therefore, if that's a 10 out of 10, my bullying, which happens to everyone, is probably a 0.2 if you're lucky. So I never process it. We say those things like, oh, it's not as bad as those kids in Africa or those children involved in that earthquake or so on. And we squash it all down. So we just don't deal with it. But that stuff stays in the system. So we have that thing in the system. We don't know what to do with it because it's not as bad as so-and-so. We can't let it out of the system. We talk about in Qigong shaking and shaking these things out. It's so necessary, but we don't even do that. So we just hold it at a cellular level. Now, my problem in floating speech marks was because I started learning these models and these ideas and these concepts and techniques probably from around about 1920. Didn't say that I used them all of the time. I knew them, but I found it very difficult to find a therapist or a healer that could either match me intellectually. And I'm not saying this. I'm not saying this in order to make to impress anyone about my stature, because I don't have that. My protective ego would tell me that these people could not match me intellectually. So therefore, I wouldn't go and seek support from them unless I really had to. So I would push myself down. I wouldn't see these people. I was constantly, right, I've got to prove myself, read another book, got to watch another podcast, get another qualification, got to do this, push. And actually what that was doing was stopping me from seeking help because I saw everybody else as inferior to me. So it caught me stuck in this really interesting psychological loop, which stopped me from getting the help that I needed. Could I find someone that could hold this space for me? Not very few. Could I get someone to do this work for me all the time? No. All in multiple aspects to it. I was just like, hold on a minute. I need to be doing for other people. The thing that you lack is the thing that you're meant to be giving. It comes, that I can't remember that Gospel of Thomas. There's that thing inside of you, and if you bring it out of you, it will save you. But if you don't and you leave it there, it will destroy you. I paraphrase. So eventually, after struggling to find therapists, to find work, in that process of what happened in 2020, my relationship with my so-called boss at the time started to deteriorate. His personality traits started to come to the forefront, which weren't very pleasant at the time. I was preparing for my first full first proper plant medicine ceremony. And I was halfway in that preparation. That job dissolved quite tumultuously, but very much in my calm, in my center. So that dissolved. Had a little bit of work coming in. We only have one income into the family because we opted to home ed, and we always have done. So the relationship, the job dissolved. I went and I arranged an event in London to connect with a couple of people, an interesting possibility around kind of using augmented reality and speakers. And so it was an interesting opportunity to help speakers get out there and be seen. And that's where I invited Tom, my teacher from FreeMind. And that's when we first connected. And I spoke to him about what was going on, what my thinking patterns were, leadership psychology, broken leaders, all these things. And he just went, this is exactly what we do at FreeMind, Nathan. This is how we help people. So I want you to come and do the training. You'll do the training with me. And I was struggling at that point to find clients to work out. You know, I knew what my limiting beliefs was. I had a fear of not good enough. I didn't know where it was coming from, but I could feel it there. And I was scared about speaking to Tom. I had the fear coming up in me because I knew full well that he would see right through what I was saying because he's qualified to do that. And I was just like, and I still got on the train and I still went and saw him and still had this process. And he said, no, come and do the training. So I did the training, and I was speaking to people about the training I was about to do. And they were saying, that sounds really interesting, Nathan, combining it with this and doing this. Can we sign up to work with you once you've done the training? And I was like, yeah. And then they told someone else, and then they spoke to him and said, that's really interesting. Can I sign up to work with you once you've done the training? I was like, yeah. And it snowballed from there. So this hypnotherapy thing is almost 2 years now. It has escalated from there, connecting more and more with people, doing my own work with plant medicines. Why? It's not everyone's cup of tea. I'm not here to advocate that. What I found, because of my understanding intellectual capacity of coaching, NLP, all of these different things, and psychotherapy, actually, for me, in some cases, it's easier to go inward using the plant medicines to shut down the conscious mind and go inwards and explore those things with my own internal dialogue, rather than having someone else projecting or throwing a question in. I can work with that. And the hypnotherapy does the same thing. The hypnotherapy shuts or helps to circumvent the conscious mind, the mind chatter, and go to the place where you need to go to, inside the subconscious. The protective ego slows down a bit. It takes the brakes off. It takes the foot off the gas, and it allows you to soften the edges to go to the place that needs to be spoken to. Now, my experiences with plant medicines and hypnotherapy, and now these other journeys and how they create, because of my process using plant medicines, because of the way that I kind of see the world and connect to spirit and do those things with that, gives me an entrance point. It feels like it gives me an entrance. I'm a very pragmatic kind of person, but also having that practical, pragmatic approach where I can come in with the hypnotherapy language, where I can use psychotherapy techniques or coaching questions, marries those two things up. And on the other side, other elements, the creative mind. I love to write. I love to explore. I want to write more. I want to not just non-fiction kind of psychotherapy, psychology type stuff. I also want to write fiction. I want to write high fantasy. So there's all these things, creative things. So when I create a journey, I can tap into that experience. I can write a narrative. I can take people down a pathway so they can see those things or tap into them. Whatever they see and whatever they tap into will be unique to each individual that explores it.
That's absolutely right. And having experienced quite a few of them now, what I like is the space that you give for our own unique experience. And the caveat is like, well, if you don't want to go down that path, there'll be something else. Or if there's a door, go through it. If there's some stairs, go up them or down them. And so you can find your own way. And there are times where I just get taken out. I don't even listen to you consciously, but I know it's going in somewhere, and I will be going somewhere else, and then I'll come back round and check in with you, and it's like, oh, you're there, are you? How do we get there? And I had to be listening to that one again. But I also know that getting my conscious mind out of the way initially is something that seems to what my system needs to do the first time round. I've noticed it with every single session I've done with you. I'll get the first bit, I'll go in, and then I'll try my best to stay, alert. But it just, so, and you talk about these sort of these three ways of approaching the sessions, don't you? About, what can happen. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. So what I found in the sessions I've led, group, one-to-one, more so in the group environments, because it's less focused, it's less attentive. I like there's a bigger swathe of the brush, as it were. So there's three levels. The first level that I find that people get into is kind of what I call level one. Is we're very conscious, we're very aware. We go into the hypnosis, but we can visualize, we can feel, and people visualize in different ways. Some people just see it as they see it. Some people will see splodges of colors or patterns. Some people, it's a psychedelic disco inside their head. It's an absolute roller coaster of all sorts of things, and it makes no sense for some people, and that's just the way it is. So that's kind of level one. Again, that's different for everyone based on how you see, how you interact in the world. Level two is, in short, what happens is, and this happens for some people at different points, I'll be counting down from 10 to 1. We'll get to about 3, 4, 3, 2, and then all of a sudden the lights go black. And then 45 minutes, an hour later, you come round, and you're in your mind's eye, you're standing on a balcony looking out over a landscape, and you're like, how the bloody hell did I get here? And it makes no sense whatsoever, but your subconscious mind, is making sense of it, because your subconscious mind is always awake, always hearing you. What's actually happening with this is we call it non-sleep deep rest. It's a phrase I picked up from Huberman before. But we need this. We need to meditate. We need to do yoga. We need to have power naps. We need to shut our eyes for 10 minutes now and again to enable the synaptic pruning, to enable the rewiring, to calm our system down, because it's hard work doing this, yeah? And it doesn't feel comfortable sometimes. It feels uncomfortable. If you ever been dealing with a problem, or you've got a situation and you're frowning, it's hard work. It makes the brain hurt. So actually going into these non-sleep deep rest system slows the system down, activates the parasympathetic nervous system. We can relax. We can get on with the rewiring without the cognitive conscious mind chatter going over the top. It's just like, just shut up for 5 minutes. Let's get on with some work. You'll hear it all. You just won't see any of it. And then you come out feeling fantastic and rested. And this is what it is. What I found with people, and I say to people, is if you get this experience in a hypnotherapy journey, you do the recording again, and you do it again and again, and your brain will start seeing bits more and more.
Right. Yes.
But at the same time, every time you do the journey, it make it completely different.
I know, that's what I'm loving. I really look forward to them. And so just before I started doing these hypnotherapy journeys with Nathan, I'd done a podcast about having silent reflux. And I know quite a few of you have been kind of asking me, how's it been going, Clara? What's been going on? And I haven't got back to any of you. So this is me getting back to you. This whole polyvagal tone thing, the vagus nerve is a big player here. And this is activated, or it becomes into its rightful tone when you're in the autonomic, the parasympathetic nervous system, which Nathan has just mentioned. So I found that my healing really increased since I've been doing these meditations, because it takes me to a deeper place of rest that I need. And I think we all need. You're so right, because there's only so much that the cognitive mind can actually do. It needs to switch off. It needs to have time off. That doesn't mean to say that it's bad that we're negating it. We'll get back to it later. But it also, just like we need to sleep at night, we also need to have time off in the day when we're not constantly on the computer or engaging. And it's this ebb and flow, isn't it? Again, we're getting into the breath of life that goes through everything we do, and tuning into that and respecting that. And so, it's been a lot better. Thank you.
Good. And this is what it's about. Is when we go into this level 2 place, actually we can shut down. We can explore a bit more, but the breath is slowing down. I'm encouraging you to elongate the out breath, breathe a little bit, breathe in a little bit less, create more oxygen in the system, like release some of that CO2 out of the system, alkalize, all of these things. So we go into it, and every time we go into it, we're releasing a bit of tension. We're rewiring some of the connections. so that actually we're getting clarity, we're changing habits, we're changing behaviors, we're letting go of old things, we're letting traumas and stresses percolate to the surface like bubbles in a glass of wine and pop when they get to the surface, and just letting that go nice and easily. Now, interestingly though, when we go into level 3 of those, level 3 is we go fully to sleep.
Yeah.
And this is the subconscious mind attempting to hijack the conscious mind. And it thinks that if it puts you to sleep, it is putting you to sleep because you're not ready to do the work. It doesn't want you to do the work because the protective ego thinks that if you do the work, it will die or you will get rid of it. And if it dies or you get rid of it, it thinks you will die because it still thinks you're 3 years old, which is the age that you were, whatever the age was, when it first showed up in your life to protect you because you couldn't protect yourself at that time. So it puts you to sleep. But what it doesn't understand is the subconscious mind is always awake. So even if you're asleep, you will hear the journey and it will be building up. You'll be building up an awareness of my voice, of the process. You will start to feel more comfortable with the processes. And the next time you do it, you might check out. You might go to level 2 or you go to level 1 and you start to build that up over a course of time.
This is really true. I think that knowing the pathway that you're suggesting. I mean, the first time you go in, it's like, what we're gonna do now? What's going to happen? And I remember there was one where towards the end of it, you introduced Archangel Metatron, and I'm like bolt upright at that point, going, my goodness, he's just called in the big guns. And that was like, and you also use music as well, which we'll talk about in a bit. But it's like, what I would really like to feed back to you here is that when I have a particular meditation that I've been running for quite a long time from Sika, Sika, who's a shamanic practitioner. You may have heard of him. He's over in New Zealand at the moment. And he has a guided sound journey that I'm just very grateful for. It's on Spotify. And that I tend to run that when I'm in the bath, because that's when my body is being held. And I think water helps us to come out of any kind of stress and stuff. So I thought that'd be a good idea. So that was my bath time meditation, and it's a very simple one. Literally, walking down the path into the cave. But after I did the hypnotherapy with you, the Free Mind, my goodness me, this has been like a reference point for me. That's how much it's shifted now. And what happens in that cave is different every time according to where I am with the process with the hypnotherapy that I've done. Yep. And so, and that gives me a time and an opportunity to freely dive into where am I now without your lovely voice guiding me, which I so appreciate. So there's this room for both to do the sessions with you and then come into a personal, well, where's that left me now? What am I noticing? And I'm just, so grateful to what you've helped open up deep in my subconscious. I'm interested to see where that's going to lead me to next, actually.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into a couple of things what you were saying before. Let me kind of reverse that back. So when you're talking about going into that meditation, so when we use the hypnotherapy, we are using language patterns and specific words to help really relax the system. We're using it to shut the conscious mind down. Why? Because everybody is running around with 150 different tabs open on their mental browser. Yeah. Most of us have probably got ADHD at one level or another, almost like a spectrum. There's neurodiversity. I don't think it's a case of, are we on a spectrum? It's a case of which spectrum are we on and how far are we on that spectrum? Because of the way that we've been brought up, I have a very firm kind of belief that society and the life that we live in is basically being woven on the traumas that we've experienced over millennia. Our habits and behaviors have been shaped by the traumas that we've experienced, which were shaped by the traumas that our parents experienced, which were shaped by and so on and so forth, all the way down. So when you start to see this and you start to look at ADHD, you start to look at, autism and certain things like this, we can start to see where these things have come from. Autoimmune disorders, ways of thinking, ways that our brains have rewired in order to adapt, in order to support us surviving. All of these things have been born out of this. So, we go to work, we stare at a laptop, we drive, we get stressed about this, we watch TV, we get bombarded by media, all of these things. Overload, we can't calm down. So then you go into a meditation and everyone's brain's working so quickly, and you go into a meditation and fingers crossed you find it a really good relaxing practicing meditation practitioner, great. Yeah, and the majority is like, okay, and close your eyes, and now you're tiptoeing through a field of daffodils, and you're going to meet your power penguin, and you're like, no, I'm not, because I'm still thinking about my accounts right now, and that jerk that cut me up in traffic 3 days ago. So
yes,
this is the importance of doing it. We have to slow the system right down. We have to take time. Just like, when we look at yoga nidra, great, we can do the yoga beforehand, and it's easier to go into those states.
Same with the Qigong as well.
Yep.
This what I could refer to as bridging acts. How do you come out of busy beta into chilled out alpha theta? You can't suddenly flick a switch. It's like, what can we do? So yeah, the way that you talk down, and it's very poetic, the way that you talk down through the numbers as well, which is it's a creative way through that I think is really clever.
Yes. And this is the beauty of the FreeMind Hypnotherapy approach, that Tom has crafted this. And also I've woven some little elements in there to, we're using words to create kind of those bridging techniques, to stimulate a sensation, to stimulate a thought process, to stimulate deeper relaxation. We're using metaphor. Why? Because the deeper parts of the brain don't work in words. They work in metaphors. They work in images. And if we create these beautiful images and these beautiful feelings, the system just goes into that calm. And then as we go into that calm, we can just slow everything down, and then we can create the visualizations. Now, as we do this, this is where it becomes so much deeper than a lot of meditations.
Right, yes.
You can visualize it. You can also physically feel it. Like, for most people in a meditation, it's like, okay, cool, I feel very relaxed. Thank you very much. Okay, cool. When we're using hypnotherapy and you're accessing the subconscious mind, you can increase someone's temperature, you can reduce their temperature, you can get them to feel certain sensations in their body. You can associate I might say to someone, we're looking at fear, okay, whereabouts do you feel that fear in your body? And they will physically feel it in their body. They will go to that location. We can then visualize what that thing looks like. So if it's fear, what does that fear look like? Is it a type of person? Is it a person? Does it look like a symbol? Or how does it come across you? How does that fear feel about you? And then we can start to have a conversation with that part of our psyche. Now, as we go in and do visualizations in this manifestation techniques, this is why the hypnotherapy is even more powerful, because it's not just, oh, look, here's my pinboard with some pictures on it and some positive affirmations. When we do this inside the subconscious through the hypnotherapy, you can actually feel it. You can actually be there. One of the techniques I use, which is called a future progression, where you take your mind and you can project it 6 months, 12 months in the future. And you can stand there as if you're in that moment, looking back over the 12 months that hasn't even happened yet, looking back and go, oh, I'm going to experience this. Oh, it's going to look like this. Oh, it feels like this to be where I want to be, or where I am, because your brain doesn't know what's real or made up. You're in that, you're visualizing that. You are there in that moment on whatever day 12 months from now, having achieved what you said you would set out to achieve, feeling it viscerally.
Exactly. I just need to say something about the symbols in that particular future progression, having run that several times, and being the way that the use of symbols, personal symbols, unique symbols, like, well, I don't know what it is. Whoa, there it is. Like, what? And then it connects in with the other symbols. And then there's the kind of the alignment, and everybody's is kind of connected to, and there's this, you can tell that deep in that space, that's where we are all connected as one. We're all part of the unique, we're a unique expression of the great one. Down, yeah. And that, as we shift and change our symbols within and being within, then that has an effect on others. This really excites me about this work. As we take care of ourselves in this way, we're also affecting the field of energy. And this is what's very exciting about this. And you know that I've been doing a little bit of Qigong in the hypnagogic state. What do you call it? Hypnotherapeutic state, maybe.
Hypnotherapeutic state, yeah. In the state of hypnosis. In the state,
just to come in, particularly the one looking into the mirror. I think that was one of the new moon ones. To be able to watch myself do a form deep down has informed how my practice is. And I remember, so when I'm on the dance floor doing some ecstatic dance, part of that information through the Qigong being deep in my psyche there comes through the expression of music through the dance. So everything is starting to join up more integrally, and this is what's happening, isn't it?
Yeah. And this is what's come through, what's informed my work over the last. So I've been running the New Moon Journey since February last year. And then up that to every week in the membership group that I've been working in. So it's new moon, full moon, and sessions in between either side of those. But over the course of this year, where I've been doing more of my own spiritual practice, more of my own deeper dives inwardly with medicine work, with varying forms, I've really been tuning into this sacred geometry, into Metatron energy, connecting in with our celestial support, our ancestors, and creating journeys that take people to those places. Because actually, then, the more you explore these things, whether it be with psychedelics or just even reading about sacred geometry and understanding kind of the dynamics of the mathematics that go into these things, is just mind-blowing. But then when you look at it and go, hold on a minute, the fabric of the universe is made up of sacred geometry, and this is what it looks like, as this language of the universe is, mathematics and sound and a frequency and all these things. Actually, there is a unique imprint that is you, that is kind of woven with this stuff. And through that mirror journey, being able to kind of go down at an X-ray level, layer upon layer of your physical being, all the way down to the geometry that sits underneath that, and then read it. And then if you need to reconfigure it to align onto a timeline that you need to be working again, we're just using these subconscious tools. It doesn't matter. Now, I'm a very practical person. I'm a very physical person. Whatever your experience is, as I lead you on that process, I've created this process because I've tuned into whatever it is, whatever nudge, whatever thought has created that moment. But then when I share that with everyone else, I'm not necessarily seeing it as you see it, because if I'm in a room with 35 people, I can't see that. I have a vision of what it might look like when I wrote the journey. But then you can go in and you can see the very fabric of it in the essence of your being. You can then play with it in your subconscious. You can move it in ways that supports you, which then enables you to come back more tuned into your Qigong, more tuned into yourself.
Exactly. Or you can give it space to do the retuning within. Like this symbol changed for me because you said it may want to change. Oh my goodness, it turned into, it's like, wow. So there's that softening of like, there's the conscious mind. That's interesting. It doesn't make things happen in the unconscious. You give space for that to occur and you watch it occurring, is what I'm feeling. You make suggestions. And I was also going to say, the depth of authenticity that you share with us is like nothing else that I've ever experienced. And that's part of how you help us feel safe, because I know you understand the responsibility there of leading people deeply in this way. So I can only highly recommend you, Nathan,
Thank you.
because of my own experience, but also I've always enjoyed your writings as well. I think that's how we first sort of noticed what you were getting up to. So something very clear and pure and true is coming through you for humanity at this time. So NathanSimmondsCoaching.com if you want to find out more. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, Nathan Simmonds.
Yeah, Nathan Simmonds with a D and the Simmonds.coaching.com. That's me.
Yeah. Or on Bookface. But I'd also like to talk about the music that you use now, because that's another way of how you keep us engaged, because there are times when there needs to be space. And it's like, and you'll play like that great song by Paya. I know that's one of your favorites because it keeps coming up. It's like, blessed we are.
Yep.
But I also feel, having listened to quite a few, you have some motifs that come through. Are you being a DJ at the same time as delivering?
Yes.
So
I've got free music software, because what happened when I first started doing the hypnotherapy, I'd have Spotify open over here, I'd have Media Player open over here, I'd have something playing over, and trying to jump between those apps just wasn't doable, wasn't tenable. And I remember, thankfully, she's a friend of mine, but at the same time, I remember doing a session, and I'd gone onto Spotify to play this specific song at just this right moment in this hypnotherapy journey, and I clicked the button, and for some reason, it jumped to the middle of the song, and it was pretty much a crescendo it jumped into rather than a build-up. And my friend's watching, and all of a sudden, literally her eyes came out of her head because she just jumped out of her skin. I was just like, oh my God. Oh yeah, we laughed and joked about it afterwards.
it's not ideal.
But it's not ideal. So I was like, okay, I'm not doing this. I'm not playing the game with all of these ones. Okay, how am I going to do this? Okay, I've downloaded some free music software. You can use it as a DJ tool if you've got the hardware. I don't have the hardware. So I just use that. And what I do is we have FreeMind Hypnotherapy music for creating the relaxation.
Okay, you do.
So that's a constant theme at the beginning of the journeys.
And that has got binaural beats in it too, has it?
It's got some binaural beats in it as well, but it's also got some stuff that's just slightly out of whack, is the technical term for it, but it causes a very slight dissonance.
Okay.
So because it's not quite right, you can't kind of go drifting off and get all melodious with it. It's just like you can't quite sit like that. So it just allows you to calm and relax the system. So we use those to start with. But then I like using the music in the background. I like having kind of flavor. I like having a theme. They talk about music being the theme of your life. And if you watch a film, there are the specific pieces of music in which are creating a tone, which are creating a vibration and a harmony. Most of the time, you don't even notice it's there because you're too busy watching the film. But it's encouraging, it's building that presence. So this is why I use it. Whether it's something by Max Richter or Hans Zimmer or whatever that have got these clear kind of motifs behind them, it's easy to use them. Also with the music side of things, everyone that's going to be listening to this or watch this, at some point in your life, you've broken up with a girlfriend or boyfriend, and then all of a sudden, every bloody song that you listen to on the radio just makes you want to bloody cry. It literally breaks up. It's the same song you heard yesterday, especially if you're listening to Capital Radio or whatever, because they just play the same music over and over again, right? But you were listening to that music the day before and it didn't affect you. But today that song has transformed for some reason, and the actual meaning and the message and the metaphor that was sitting behind those words is now suddenly exploded and is breaking you open. So when we use the music, yes, there's some clear songs out there which are blatantly inner child healing songs. There are some songs out there which are supportive, healing, relaxing, compassionate, encouraging, full of, energy or whatever it is. And we can use the right song with the right tone at the right time. And this is why I explained at the beginning of the sessions, if I don't say anything and there's music playing, let the music carry you. Let it take you wherever you need to go.
Exactly.
Or I might give you a prompt that this song, as Tom taught me, this next song is the love letter that you wish you'd written to your younger self, or you wish your younger self had written to you. And we can put on a beautiful, inner child song or kind of relaxation or whatever, and just let that be the metaphor for that feeling to come forward, so that we can actually express that emotion rather than it being stuck in the system.
Yeah, and also there's something, it's like a sound carpet that holds the session. So if it was completely silent, that can be helpful, something. But if you're in a space that's being held, is that person still there, or has the technology crashed, or what's going on? Whereas if there's a gentle constant that is there, so I use the sound bowls quite a lot when I'm doing the meditations. If it's in quiet, very quietly just wind that round, just to keep that. Yeah, I'm still with you. You're still being held. That's such a big part of all of this, letting yourself be held, and also being held by someone who is, just got the right integrity going on with them. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anything that you particularly like to show? Is there anything? I don't think we can really share a full journey here, but is there anything that, is a little drop in or something that people could do just to bring themselves into a calm space? Is there something?
There's two things, and it's something that I tuned into recently, and it's just helping to calm the system. And one of those things which most people know is just about elongating the breath. It's just when we come into that breath, and we talk about it in the free mind process, and as we bring people into stillness, is just breathing out for longer than you would usually. And even when you're taking that breath, is slowing everything down and pausing at the top and pausing at the bottom. So we even just do it now. So I can invite everybody to take a breath right now, and we do it for 3 breaths, and then I'll show you another breathing technique that would really kind of support it. And we're just taking in breath. So invite everyone to take a breath in, and then pause at the top as you breathe in, And then breathe out for longer than you would usually. And pause at the bottom of your breath. Just take a moment to notice how relaxing it is to breathe that deeply. And then breathe in. Pause at the top. And breathe out again longer. Elongate the breath. Just existing on a little less oxygen, and pause at the bottom again. And breathing in nice and gently. Filling your lungs completely. Pausing. Then breathing out again longer, slower. Slowing everything down. And even just doing this, just breathing normally for a moment now, even just doing this just helps us to slow the system down. And as we do that, we can just take our time to do that. And we do this through the first kind of 10, 12 minutes of the FreeMind hypnosis process, just to slow everything down. Now, the other breath technique, which I've learned recently, which I think is brilliant, is kind of a psychological sigh. And it's what we see as children. When you see an upset child, whether you've got children or not, but often when you see they're really upset and they've gone through that range of emotions and they get to the other end, and the first thing they do is go, and we often do it and we don't realize we're doing it, but it's a psychological shift in the mind that says we have expelled or shifted what needed to be expelled and shifted, and we're just having a little reset. So when we do this, all we do is we just take kind of a long inhale and then just stop, and then a sharp kind of second inhale, and then let it all out. Literally this, and you just go.
So with sound or without sound?
With or without sound.
So this is reminding me of the power of yawning. This is something that I learned from doing some resetting your vagus nerve, a particular sort of place that you put your neck in and your eyes look the other way. And you wait until a yawn either comes in spontaneously or you've had enough of that and you need to take a yawn in. Because I didn't know this before, but yawning resets the system. It's part of the whole resetting. It's not about being bored. It's about it's a whole reset. You know how powerful a big proper old yawn is, and how it ripples all the way down through you, doesn't it? And I've found that's happened in some of the hypnotherapy sessions as well, is that I've been yawning. That's good. That's a good sign, isn't it?
Yeah. And this is like, we use it as also a purging technique, like you say, resetting. Sometimes when we're in processes, it might be that, depending on the cycles or circles you're in, it might be vomiting as kind of the purging, or crying.
Right,
yeah. Depending where you are, depending if you're what medicine you're working with even with the holotropic breath work. But even the yawning, I've been in many medicine circles and I have yawned so much I literally thought my jaw was going to dislocate.
Yeah, and you get all the tears as well, don't you?
They just keep coming. But as you said, that reminded me that when my wife and I were young and we first got to know each other, we used to play this silly game of when someone was yawning, you stick your finger in the mouth.
Yes.
Right. I don't know if you've ever done this, but like you get to a point when the idea is to get your finger in the mouth far enough and then to stop the yawn and get your finger out without getting bitten. Yeah. And we were doing this for a couple of weeks, and I remember we both started, it wasn't just me, we both started to absolutely lose our shit because we hadn't yawned properly for nearly 2 weeks.
Oh, really?
And actually, emotionally, it's a really interesting dynamic. So we had to make a promise never to do that ever again with each other. So that, because like you say, it's that reset. There's an energetic exchange. You're blowing out the stale, you're kind of bringing in, because you're taking that big gulp of air in before you yawn out, which resets the system, reoxygenates, and keeps you moving.
We're all having a good yawn here on Chi Time. Nathan, this is really cool. Thank you so much for being here. So this is going out on Wednesday, the 27th. That's right. We have a new moon tomorrow. This is at the end of July. And I'm going to get this up so people can watch this today, because you have something special happening tomorrow and then again leading up to Lionsgate. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah. So tomorrow night, on every new moon, or as near to the new moon as possible, depending on where it falls, I lead a new moon journey, which is a couple of hours where we use the hypnotherapy and go into a guided process. I write a new journey, a new process every single month based on the energies of the moon, what astrological signs coming in, what I'm tuning into as well as the person facilitating it. So the 28th of July is what I've called the inner fire activation. And what we're actually doing is we're going to be going in and looking at kind of the throat chakra area and activating the inner voice, the inner self-expression. Why? Because the color of this is around blue, and then absolutely this. So as we kind of go into that blue color, that's then lining us up for the 8th of August, which is the Lion's Gate, which is to do with the Sirius star Sirius, which is blue, which is the spiritual sun. So it's just lining us up for the 8th of August Lion's Gate process, where as we go into that, the new moon journey is an open journey. It's open to everybody, donation if people want to join. 8th of August is £8.88.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. It'd be silly not to be. So in that, what we will actually do is we'll go into a very deep process, and in that I use 2 countdowns to deepen the relaxation.
I love that. You know, I do that anyway now.
Yes. Yeah. It's beautiful.
And I kind of go in a little anti-clockwise spiral down, but I'm counting down with each spiral. It does, and it's like it does it itself. It's like a little miracle going on. But yeah, I like it when you do it as well, because you don't know when it's going to turn up, and then there'll be another slant on it. It'll be like, that's how you're doing the countdown number 2. Interesting.
Yeah. And the reason to do this is because often with one, sometimes there's still some mind chatter going on.
Definitely, yeah.
Oh, we're going to go in this visualization. Oh, but I'm still thinking about whether I've done that or did this. Oh, there's another countdown, and then that other thing drops away.
Yes, exactly.
And then when we get to the Lion's Gate, actually, it's going to be an opportunity just to drift out into the cosmos and reconnect with your higher self, and pick up any of those messages from your higher self to yourself. What's being called forward from that space through you? What are you being a conduit for? What do you need to be a conduit for? What are you designed for? And embodying that stuff even more clearly on the 8th of August as well.
It's a powerful, powerful portal. And it's all this Leonine energy. And I am a Leo. I just had my birthday, and I know Tom is as well, though Tom is cusp, isn't he? He's just about in Leo. I'm really going to have a little chat with him too soon. I think that feels right. And and this new moon is a Leo new moon. So it's all heart activation. This is the whole thing about the more we tune in with our hearts, the more in the truth we are, but also the more we're radiating out like coherent frequencies, and that we connect with one another within all of that too. And this is how we build the new earth, basically, because that's where the truth is. I was going to say that's where the truth lies, but I struggle with that word lying and truth. So I said that's where the truth is, that's where the truth sits, in our hearts. So, and that our throats are speaking from the heart. So I see that the throat has a root in the heart, and when we breathe into our hearts and we trust what wants to come out, say you're having a difficult conversation and you know that you've got to say something tricky. If you breathe into your heart, it will come out the right way, because you haven't thought about it, but you've tuned in with love, with the Shen, the soul, the spirit that lives in your heart, and you've trusted that is what will activate your voice to speak that piece of communication to someone. And sometimes, I don't know about you, you'll be saying something like, I don't even know why I've said that, and they'll go, I do, because it links up with this and that. Now your conscious mind could not have worked that out. So tuning into the wisdom of the heart, and then the voice as well, and into the lion, of course, being the symbol of Leo too. So it's a very, very powerful time. Nothing is going to be the same again. It's up to us to create the new future together now. And I know that your hypnotherapy sessions are a big part of making that happen for so many of us. So thank you, Nathan, from the depth and breadth of my beautiful beating heart, for all that you do and be in the world.
Thank you. Absolutely this. And I'm excited to see what it brings. I'm excited. And I'm hugely energized about getting to more people, because I know actually it will have a huge impact on people. Massively.
So I'll put links to everything below if you're watching this on YouTube, and it'll be on the podcast as well. But it's Nathan Simmonds with a D, coaching.com, or Facebook, Nathan Simmonds. It's very easy to find out what you're getting on with. And you've got a great deeper healing group happening as well, which we have quite a lot of fun in too. So Thank you for that. Oh, brilliant. Oh, go well, my friend.
And
Keep-
you, thank you.
Keep your chi up. And let's have a little dong of the throat chakra just to sort of complete for us all now. So sitting in, doing that lovely long breath that Nathan was introducing, and just receive these tones. It always makes me sing. If it makes you sing, let yourself sing. Have a little la la, have some fun, yeah. Because that's what this is all about. Hey, thank you all so much for watching and listening. Clara Polo over and out. I'll be with you next month with something else interesting to help you along life's journey. Take care, and I'll see you in Nathan's sessions very soon. Bye for now. Keep your chi up.